Welcome, racers. This is the pre-race show for round number 3 of the Downhill Southeast series at Windrock Bike Park. Well, good afternoon, Nico. How are you doing?
Doing well, Will. Excited for the next round of the Downhill Southeast.
Me too, man. Going back to Windrock Bike Park, a place that I always love announcing races, although there are times that I'm certainly glad I'm not racing because things can get pretty gnarly pretty quick out there. And I mean, I guess that's why the racing's always so good at Windrock.
Yeah, Windrock has been the hub of downhill racing in the Southeast for the past decade. It's where most guys train in the wintertime. It's open every day. It's got challenging terrain. And this is going to be the 8th year in a row we've had a Downhill Southeast race there. So it's the only venue that's hosted a Downhill Southeast every year. And we always look forward to going back there. We know the tracks are going to be good. We know the uplifts are quick. It's just we know what we're dealing with at Windrock, and it is a perfect venue for downhill racing.
Yeah, it is. And it's come so far over the years. I'm curious, what was your first experience at Windrock? Like, when did you first go out there to ride, and what was it like?
So I personally came down to the Southeast. I'm from near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And when I was in high school, I'd come down in the wintertime to do some riding. And primarily it was here in Pisgah Forest, where I live, that I would do a ton of trail riding. But there wasn't really a downhill shuttle spot in the Southeast at that point, except for Windrock, which I had heard from other riders like Garrett Beta and Chris Herndon, guys that were the top pros at the time. I've heard like legendary stories of this Windrock place where they would go and ride. And it was gnarly. It was like one of the most raw, rugged places that you could ride a bike at. So I got to go there for the first time. I think it was 2012 or 13. Went out there with Luca and Walker, got to ride. At that time, it was really just like one trail at a time running, but Middle Finger was the one that was kind of running good at that point, which is really what's been the national race course for the past, 6-7 years. So some evolution of that was what we rode for the first time. And since going there, went back a ton and obviously spent a lot of time myself at Windrock helping to develop the bike park and then with these races as well. So it's a good spot.
Yeah, I had a similar experience back in college. I was at App State, and that's where I got into riding from 2006 to 11 on the 5-year plan. And yeah, I kept hearing about Windrock, all these stories. And I remember a couple times when the boys, Moto Mike, Andrew Mueller, Steven Trottier, would make trips out to Windrock. I just couldn't make it for whatever reason. And I actually didn't have a downhill bike back then. I had an all-mountain hardtail, Iron Horse Yakuza Chimpira with a Marzocchi DJ3, and some
It's a
big
good
fat
thing you
Michelin.
didn't go to Windrock with that.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. I actually never made it back then. I was supposed to go to that night shift race they did, but once I finally did come to Windrock for the first Downhill Southeast there 8 seasons ago, I was very glad that I didn't attempt it on my hardtail back in the day, because Lord knows I would have sent it. For better or worse. Well, before we jump into the details for the Windrock round, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask, because the memories from Rock Creek are still so fresh in my mind. That was an amazing race. It was our largest Downhill Southeast ever with 440 registered riders. I think 420 approximately made it to the start line on race day. But who was the standout performer at that round to you from Rock Creek?
Oh, it had to be Asa. I mean, that was pretty amazing to qualify first, be up at the top behind Aaron Gwynn and Luca Shaw, drop in last, and put in just a perfect run to beat those guys. Like, that's a lot of downhill is so mental. It's like a lot of mental pressure, and obviously you have to ride really fast as well. So you have to have the skills and pull it off, and I was impressed. Like, I thought he could do it, but wasn't sure if he would be able to be up there and make it happen when it counted. I had full confidence in him, but it's tough to be in that spot. And I don't think he even realized it. Like, he's at a young age where those things don't really set in. Like, he's just like, oh yeah, just do another run. Like, hopefully the time's good.
Yeah, a huge standout performance. My cat Greer is making an appearance. I know you're a big cat guy. Um, but yeah, I was really impressed with Ace's performance as well. I'll say my standout performer is going to be Riley Miller, who was second place in pro women. Her run on the replay show was just really impressive. Ended up second place. You know, she wasn't like right on Miranda from a time perspective, but I was just impressed by her style and her composure on that track. She's still really young. She's 18 this year, and yeah, that'll be my standout performance.
Awesome.
Well, let's dive into Windrock. May 5th through 7th, it'll be round number 3 of our series. As you mentioned, it's a place we're very familiar with, but if you haven't been to Windrock yet this season, there are a couple changes with the general store and some other things kind of around the venue. So talk us through what folks can expect when they pull up if they haven't been there in a year or so.
Yeah, so Windrock got a new general store. It's up at the top of the main parking lot, kind of where the red pavilion and the finish line for our previous races was. In that upper main parking lot is now the general store. So that's where on a regular weekend you can go to check in, get your ticket. Parking is now below that in the lower half of that main parking lot. And yeah, they still have on a regular weekend, there's security guards, there's the Windrock off-road staff there to point people in the right direction. So it'll be a similar setup to Tennessee National. We're going to just have first come, first serve parking. I know that a lot of people like the pit space at Rock Creek, and our plan is to keep doing that the rest of the season. So for Mountain Creek, Snowshoe, the rest of the races, that shouldn't be a problem. We wanted to do it this weekend, but the place that Windrock gave us to have the dedicated pits was actually further away than most of the first come, first serve parking, and we didn't feel like it was right to make people pay for a spot that was going to be worse than they could just go and set up. So we're just going to do the standard, you know, how we've been doing it. It's a big parking lot. Just come in and park organized and park where you like. And then we'll be set up in the top of the parking lot with our Downhill Southeast trailer. I imagine somewhere really close to the general store where people can check in and pick up their number plates and everything they need.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the uplifts at Windrock are dialed. They're really quick, and I think they just got some fresh new trucks, didn't they?
Yeah, they got some new trucks just before the Tennessee National. SRAM helped them out with those. They have like a SRAM one and a RockShox one. They're super nice. They have a cover over the back, which is good if it rains, but also in the summer sometimes we get pretty hot, and to be in the shade was pretty nice to be on the back of the truck. So yeah, those things are awesome. And the road at Windrock's obviously completely paved and pretty fast. So yeah, no concerns with uplifts at Windrock at all.
Yeah, I mean, racers might have to pace themselves a little bit because you can really turn some laps up there and wear yourself out quickly. Speaking of wearing yourself out, let's dive into the tracks. I'm kind of interested to hear if you've talked to Sean and know what they're cooking up. I know that Sean really likes the Downhill Southeast coming to Windrock because it gives him an opportunity to run some different tracks. As you mentioned, for the Tennessee National, it's kind of that one main middle finger track with variations. But we had a cool track last year. I think it used some of Trail 1. It was actually the pro track last year was pretty steep. I didn't get a chance to get a lap on it, but it was that like hard pack Windrock dirt and steepness. But what Sean got cooking up for this round?
Yeah, I was talking with Sean and Jake Kahn, who does a lot of trail work out there on the trail crew. And they have a cool track lined up. It's going to be pretty similar to the pro track from last year. It's going to start in the start gate where Tennessee National did, drop into that first section of, I guess it's Snake Rock. At least it was before the trails got moved around. It crosses over Talladega and then kind of hangs a left where the National went right over to Middle Finger. And it'll hit a little switchback there, and then into Snake Rock through the Flat Rock Garden, across the power line. And then there's that spot where the big tree fell down. They made like a huge scrub roller, like a single thing. And it's steep down the back. It'll go off to the right there into Caveman. And that's that sort of steep switchback trail that we raced last year. Run some new lines in there. There's a lot of stuff. I rode it this winter where you were just a trail width off to the left or right, and it was the same trail, but most of it you were on a fresh section, and it made it ride a lot different. So they're really good at switching stuff up, especially for a race. Taping it even just a little different makes it ride differently. So it'll be a variation of that, and then it'll go across the little flat section before the spine, and then finish the same route that the Tennessee National did. So across the new bridge they made, and then into the new Red Bull Ravine, or is it the Redneck Ravine or the Red Bull Ravine? Here are a few options, but yeah, I think it'll be a cool pro track.
Awesome. I did see the new Redneck Red Bull Ravine in the Tennessee National. I wasn't able to be on site, but it looks pretty rowdy in there. Like, how does that ride? I'm curious. I might be able to get on the bike and get a practice lap, but there's like a big cannon log and some other things in there.
Yeah, I haven't got to ride it. I didn't make it that far.
Yeah. Didn't quite make it that far. I forgot.
But no, it looks good. It looks like the jumps at race speed get a little short, so guys got to scrub them, which is always exciting. But yeah, it looks like it rides really well. It's a cool jump set at the finish there.
Any different sections for the Cat 2-3 track compared to the Pro track?
Yeah, for sure. That track's pretty hard. So we have a pretty much completely different track for those guys. They'll start off the same way, and then they'll where you kind of get onto Snake Rock, cross the power line, and it gets steep. They'll continue to the left, which was the original Snake Rock Trail, and a lot of it actually wasn't even used as the bike park. Snake Rock before Windrock Bike Park was, I guess those old school guys called it a cross country trail, where it was pretty flat and had some real switchbacks. And then when we were building the bike park, we kind of cut out those flat sections to make it have more flow. And anybody who rides the trail, you can feel it's got some bench cuts, and then you turn and steep section, and then back onto a bench cut. So they have some cool routes that will follow the original layout of Snake Rock, traverse more, and avoid all those steep sections. I'm told it will be very similar to Dropout. The bike park's open that weekend, so there wasn't an option to use Dropout for the race, because that would pretty much eliminate all available free ride lines. For free riders, they can go to the start gate and then take a right on what used to be the beginning of Middle Finger. For some of our original races, they resurfaced that whole line, and they made it pretty easy now. It's kind of like a blue trail. They had a small excavator through there. So that'll take you down to the right of the race course into Talladega and drop out for people who are free riding. But the Cat 2-3s will ride this new version of Snake Rock. I said they needed a new name because Snake Rock kind of scares people. We're saying maybe like Wormstone or something a little bit softer than Snake Rock. But yeah, it'll avoid all the gnarly parts. I know that rock garden in the beginning is a little rough, but they have some ideas about taping it and making the entrance so that it's nothing dangerous. The track will be definitely technical, but it'll be a blue level trail, and then they'll merge back together down for the last section with options to obviously go around all the jumps. So I think it'll be really cool. I think the Cat 2-3 riders will really enjoy this one. It's always a challenge at Windrock to come up with a different track. We've raced Dropout, we've raced Reach Around so many times, and that's really the only tracks that those guys have had a chance to race. Reach Around's in a little rough shape right now, so that this was actually an easier option, similar difficulty to Dropout, and will be over in that section of the bike park near the pro course. So I think it's a really good fit.
Nice. I'm excited to check it out, and I've always loved that flatter Snake Rock rock garden. For me, that was just a section of trail that I loved riding on bike park days, because I feel like you can really build speed there. The more confident you get, you can start maybe getting your wheels off the ground a little bit, or just pumping those rocks harder. So yeah, that should be a great challenge for everybody. And since that little rock garden's on both courses, they can watch some of the pros and get some inspiration on their own lines. Yeah,
it's a cool section where it's difficult but not dangerous. So like the slower you go through it, the easier it is. But if you want to pick up the speed, It's just gets a little bit more technical, but at no point are you like on the side of a mountain on some super committed line. So it's a good chance for people to progress.
Well, I saw that the early registration period where you get, what is it, $10 off your registration, that has expired. Obviously, registration is still open for the regular registration price. I was looking at Go Reggie and seeing who was registered. What are your thoughts on some of the heavy hitters that are coming out to this race in the pro men's and the pro women's class?
Yeah, I'm excited to see who's going to be racing. I think when we start to have races back to back, people forget to register until the last minute. But I know Aaron's going to be racing. I know Ace is coming back out. So top two guys from Rock Creek can do battle again. See if Aaron can get some redemption and show the young guy who's boss. And then, I know Dooley and Pinky have been out there at Windrock. I'm not sure if they're staying out for the race, but I know they've been out there training a lot. So hopefully they can sign up. And the women's, hoping that we see more ladies from up north come down. And I think it should be a good race. A lot of guys that are practicing for bigger races later in the year. This is a really good preseason race that's not too far out from the Mountain Creek National or the start of the World Cups. So it should be really good. I know Chris Grice is going to race too. So this was a big one for him for preseason. I'm hoping that it's really competitive like it was at Rock Creek.
Yeah, I think it will be because there's some prestige with winning a race at Windrock because of the venue, but you also know the field's going to be deep. Lucas Dodora is signed back up for pro men, so that'll make it 3 rounds for young Lucas, who is from New York, riding for pro builds, and he was 6th place at Rock Creek, mixing it up actually right in front of Tyler Irvin and Tristan Lemire. So we'll see if Lucas can continue to build that momentum. Jack Peterson is on the start list. I know he's still dealing with a wrist injury from his big crash at the Tennessee National, so kind of a little bit ginger on that wrist, but I mean, Jack's just hungry, and he had a good result at Tennessee National, so I'd expect to see him come out swinging. And Titus Nicholson is on the start list, and I know he was super bummed to get knocked out in practice at round number 1. Knee injury, pretty significant knee injury, but he's back at it. I've seen him ripping on the Sur-Ron, on the downhill bike on Instagram, and I mean, he lives in those parts, so I think Titus will definitely be one to watch.
I think all the local boys at Windrock, they might not have always been local, but they've gravitated to live at Windrock. All those guys will be super fast at this race, so it'll be pretty tight.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and make a bold prediction on the pro women's race that Shell Peugeot will come out swinging here. I've seen her riding a ton at Windrock, and she qualified 2nd at Rock Creek, and I actually talked to her yesterday because I wanted to know. I was like, hey, what happened in your race run? You ended up off the top 3 podium, and she was on the same second as Miranda in qualifying, and Shell said that it was just a lackluster run. Wasn't really anything major. She just didn't necessarily, have a great run that was pushing the whole time. It was a little bit conservative, and I think that's kind of lit a fire under her. So that's my prediction. We're going to see something big from Shell here at Windrock.
Cool.
Well, anything else, Nico, about this round at Windrock before we briefly look ahead to the rest of the season?
So just a little bit to touch on some logistics for people coming from out of town. Windrock has a campsite on property. You have to reserve a spot. They have RV hookups, they have cabins, and they have primitive camping. I'm not sure at this point how full it is. Normally it's pretty full already from their off-road park, but you can't expect to camp in the parking lot. If you wanted to camp at Windrock, you need to go to their campground. It's just less than a mile from the trailhead, and it's really nice. They have bathhouse and everything there. So look into that if you're thinking of camping. There's also, if that's full, there's a few other options really close by with how big the off-road park is. There's a lot of options for camping nearby Windrock. Oak Ridge is a big town. It's only about 10 minutes away, and there's pretty much everything you need there. Really nice restaurants, big box hotels. You can find anything you need in Oak Ridge. So if people are still looking for a place to stay, look at that as kind of like a hub for where you might want to stay. I think that's pretty much it on logistics wise. People are, I guess, if you're still flying in, like Knoxville Airport's awesome. It's only 30 minutes from the venue, and they have a lot of connections, so that's an easy choice for most people. Um, Quick touch on something for registration that we always try to push is to bring your USA cycling license or proof of it. There might not be good phone service. There hasn't been at the past couple venues. So if you can have that loaded on your phone, obviously a physical license is always the best. But if you go onto your account with USA Cycling, you can screenshot or just have that up on your phone, proof that your license is valid. We're required to check that. So, and if you have a 1 day, you can show us your receipt for getting the 1 day with our race. Real quick, schedule wise, we're running the same schedule we ran at Rock Creek. If people want to track walk on Thursday, they need to go to the general store and get a spectator wristband. They're free, but that will allow you to get up to the shuttle. And as for anyone who wants to spectate, they need to go to the general store all weekend, sign the waiver, get a free spectator band. The security guards will not let you up onto the mountain without it. So just check in there. But yeah, track walk all day Thursday, or during the event while your practice isn't on, you can track walk the other course. We'll throw the schedule up on the screen, but it's the same one we ran at Rock Creek. The only thing that's somewhat of a variable is our qualifying took a lot longer than we expected at Rock Creek. We had an hour outlined for it based on the numbers we usually have for Cat 1s and pros, and Rock Creek being a bigger race than we expected, we had to bump that up. Took about an hour and 45 minutes. So it's not an issue. Like, we planned to end at 4:30 and the bike park's open until 6. So if you're in that last practice at the end of the day, Saturday, you might just get bumped back. You'll get the time that you need. You'll get your 2.5 hours, which is what each group gets, but it'll start as soon as the seating is done. Ideally, it starts at 2 when it's supposed to, but if it's bumped back to 3, you'll get till 5:30 instead of 4:30. So just something to keep an eye on, and we'll know once the registration closes how many riders we have.
Yeah, and speaking of practice and track walk stuff, we're going to do it again. We tried to kind of rally and make this happen at Rock Creek, but for this race at Windrock, Carolyn Mullally is actually going to have some trash bags in the Downhill Southeast trailer. We actually noticed a ton of trash on the side of the track after Saturday practice. So if you're going up for a track walk at the end of the day Saturday, you can stop by the Downhill Southeast trailer, grab a trash bag, and if you fill it up, then we've got some Downhill Southeast swag that we'd love to give you for helping us keep the venues clean.
Yeah, let's just start by saying, if you bring trash, don't throw it on the ground.
That's a great place to start.
At Windrock, people are going to be able to collect a lot of trash.
True.
Bring some stuff to the recycling
cars.
center.
Yeah, hey, that pays.
Get some iron out there. So we better be careful, or we're going to give away all of our T-shirts and swag. People are going to be bringing back more trash than we can haul off.
Good stuff. Oh man. Well, yeah, it's going to be a long week and a half to wait for this race. I'm already excited. It was so cool to see a ton of spectators at the bottom for the video show at Rock Creek. So, if you're not practicing that morning on Sunday morning, come out to the bottom, come out to the finish corral, make some noise. You'll see yourself on the replay show later. It definitely adds a level of energy to that show to have the crowd noise in the background.
Yeah, for sure. And check out that race replay if you haven't already from Rock Creek. I thought that turned out really well. They get better every time, but the race coverage on that one was super exciting. So thanks to those guys for making it happen.
It was superb, and I got to apologize to Luca for putting him on the spot when he was so out of breath out of his race run. We'll try to give him a little more of a breather next time.
That's all good. It's live action. That's what really happened.
The heat of the moment. All right, Nico. Well, glad to catch up with you. Everything been good on your end? I saw you went and traveled out to Sea Otter.
Yeah, I'm good. I can't race for the first half of the season. We'll see. I'm cleared to ride again June 15th as long as my x-ray looks good. But it'll take me some time to get feeling strong enough to really race. I'm sure I won't be able to support the speed I want to go right away. I'll be pretty weak from being on the crutches. And with that, not being sure exactly when I'll be back racing, I went out to Sea Otter to just see a lot of my sponsors. We brought 2 race bikes, shared them with the different sponsors at their booths so they could display it with the products I'm using and, thank them all for the support, show my face. And they sponsored me to race, and I couldn't do it for a little while. So got to show that I'm doing something. And it was a fun week. I saw lots of friends out there. It was super cool. So yeah, good. I'm doing good. I'm healing up. I'm feeling a lot better. Now is going to be the hard part where I start to feel pretty darn good again, but still need to take it easy, which I'm not very good at. So got to try to keep that in check.
Maybe a lot of Green River laps at Rock Creek in your future. Get things warmed back up.
At least to start, right? Like that's a good one where can build the muscles up, some big G outs in the berms to build up that leg again, but nothing too gnarly. So I'm sure I made my appointment for 8:00 in the morning, the day that I'm cleared. So I'm going to go get that checked, and then I probably will be out there riding that afternoon.
Awesome. And I'm curious, any big lessons learned at Rock Creek from having such a big race there for Downhill Southeast and preparations for national championships in July? I mean, everything went, pretty smoothly from where I was sat.
Yeah, we always learn a lot. I'd say there were a lot of small things that we learned there. We needed more porta potties down at the parking lot. We had them all up at the top. We had 4 shuttle rigs, and then those were working really well. But on Saturday afternoon, the Windrock truck that we reclaimed from them, it threw a serpentine belt. So it was out for the last practice, and it was down to 3 shuttles, which is kind of the worst time because there's a lot of people jumping in trying to free ride too. So we extended their practice and gave them more time, but the line was longer than we wanted. It appeared to be longer than it was because the shuttle picks you up and then it's like takes the line down in big chunks. But we need a spare, and our plan is to have a spare for nationals. But four shuttles working was really good. Like some guys told me in the morning when they only had the 1 hour practice, they did 4 runs, which was crazy with how many people were in their practice. Now, granted, they were like loaded up at 7:45 for their 8 to 9 practice, but to get 4 runs during that is exceptional. So that all works super well. And then just like some little things with the bike park, everybody's scheduled to start working at 10. And since our race started at 8, there were some people that wanted to buy something from the store, but we didn't have anybody there running the cash register, just little stuff like that. But overall, our race was on time. Everybody had enough space to park. It looked really good in the show. I thought everything, for the most part, the big things on the front end went smoothly. The medical team did a great job. There was good access for them. So yeah, super smooth, but like some little changes that we can make on the next one. The thing is, you never know until you do it. Like you can think all you want and make a big plan, but you got to just have that many people there during crunch time to know how it's going to go and then take that feedback and improve. So I thought it was, perfect testament.
I've been watching Max Beaupre post some stories on Instagram about these enduro tracks. How do you think those are going to turn out?
They'll be pretty janky, and
he's kind of like a mad scientist.
Yeah, I think they'll be cool. They'll be like narrow, janky, awkward, probably pretty steep. I think they'll be cool. I think they'll be exactly the spirit of enduro. Haven't got a chance to like go back. I can't crutch all the way back there.
Yeah,
but I rode one or two of them that they made before I got hurt, and they're pretty tech. They reminded me of some stuff out at Windrock for the Windrock Enduro.
Nice.
So yeah, I think they'll be good. Obviously, Dr. Dave steps in, and he thinks that they're pretty gnarly. Like it's always a funny dynamic because like he wants to say that they're too hard for general enduro, but he also doesn't want to lead on that he thought they were too hard. So it's funny to get all the feedback from everyone. Like I rode them and I was like, yeah, these are too hard for the public. If it rains, like obviously for a pro stage, this is awesome, but like this is pretty gnarly for running a full race down. And they're like, oh, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to say that too, but I didn't want them to think that I couldn't do it. So no, I think they'll be sweet. They're building a climbing trail in the back now too, so it'll be a lot of the race sustained on the back of the mountain. And they're also working on the dual slalom, which will be cool. I'm gonna try to have them mulch all those big piles of brush that they chipped out, or that they tore out, that was next to the finish of the race.
Yeah.
And put some mulch turns on the dual slalom track. It would be so sick. Just like big, deep mulch S turns.
That will be amazing. Definitely have to make that happen. Cool, man. Well, what about Stampede? I'll ask you that for my last question, because I know you were trying to keep the times 2 minutes or over, and Asa Witten broke that 2-minute barrier. So I know you haven't really been able to be around in the woods as much as you'd like with the injury, but the boys have any tricks up their sleeves trying to continue to improve that track too?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things we can do. We didn't get everything done before the race that I would have wanted to if I could have been working on it. And even just like some of the taping, I thought could have been a little more challenging to make it, a couple seconds slower, which is, there's no like rule that needs to be more than 2 minutes, but I feel like a legit downhill should be. So that's kind of the goal I'm shooting for. And obviously I could make it super slow and make it longer than 2 minutes, but I want it to be a proper downhill, fast, rough, gnarly, big compressions, and more than 2 minutes. So I think a couple taping changes would have done it. And then there's like 1 or 2 sections that I want to change. But for the most part, it rode really well, and I was happy with it. And pretty confident with it for nationals. I think it'll be a good, it raced great this past weekend. So if we
really did
replicate that and keep it fresh for people who have ridden it already, so they're coming in with a new challenge. Like, that was the cool thing this weekend, even for a lot of the people that ride at Rock Creek a lot, there was a new challenge with the track being modified. So it took away that home field advantage, which is good for keeping the race fair, and also made it more exciting. Like, if I go to a race that's at my home mountain and it's completely changed, then that's way more exciting and interesting to me. I hope people have that outlook, and not that we took away their little secret advantage that they had. But we're going to do the same for nationals. So I will rearrange my puzzle of rocks, and we'll have a new track that's similar but different for national champs.
Nice. And I actually heard that positive feedback about the changes from locals. Some folks actually saying they preferred how it rode for the race and all those changes to kind of the bike park version of Stampede.
Yeah, I think we just made it wider with more line choice. The first time I was building a track looking at a mountain that had no trails on it. So the first time when I made it, I thought stuff was going to ride in a certain way, and some of it did, but it became pretty mainline pretty quick. So it's obviously easier the second time to go back knowing that and see how it has ridden in and make it wider with options and stuff. So that's what we're going to try to keep doing. Keep it exciting, keep a fun racetrack. We need that here in North Carolina.
Right on.
But there's no shortage of it at Windrock. It's much easier out there to make a technical hard track that's different every time. The mountain just gives it to you. So come out this weekend and you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Jake and Sean have cooked up. And I know that Jake Conn typically posts some course previews a few days before, so you can kind of keep tabs on Jake's YouTube. We might even post them on Downhill Southeast YouTube too. I'm not sure, but I'll be looking for those to keep me stoked, and watch the Rock Creek replay if you need something to tide you over for the next week and a half.
Yep, keep an eye out. Those will be coming this weekend, and we'll see you guys at Windrock.
All right, Nico, see you there.